Good afternoon, everyone. I am really excited to be here with you today because today we're talking about something that we are seeing more and more of, the question of where do I go next? Where do I go from here? Here being, in today's case, Razor's Edge and the Blackbaud ecosystem, but this could easily be a question about Salesforce or any other conversation that you might be having internally at your organization about where you go for a holistic, unified view of your donors, fundraising, and financials. That's what we're really going to be talking about today. So today's topic, moving on from Razor's Edge, fundraising with Mission CRM on the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. There's a lot to unpack in that one sentence alone. So we've got the people here to help you understand just what the heck that all means. So alongside me today for the ride, we have Heller Consulting, industry experts. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a moment, along with the Mission CRM team. And we're the donor management, fundraising, and financial folks who make that all happen in what we call the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. So let's dive in. We'll just do some brief kind of agenda overview. You're going to get to know us a little bit because that's important that you understand who we are and why we're sharing this information with you today. Then we're going to talk about some of the common challenges that we've seen over the years, both Heller Consulting and Mission CRM with Razor's Edge, those challenges and the opportunities as well. Then we're going to dive into Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. What is this thing in the sky? Well, it's a whole bunch of things, and we're going to try and break it down for you so that it makes common sense out of how you can take advantage of it as a nonprofit organization. And then we're going to have a little QA, some friendly banter between a couple of our guests here with us this afternoon. And then we want you to ask questions at the end. If you can just hold on to them, put them in the chat. I will gladly bring them up at the end of our conversation to make sure that you get the answers that you need. All right, let's dive into who we are. Off the top, my name is Christina Heroncourt. I am the co-founder and managing director of Mission CRM. And over to you, Jet.
Hi, I'm Jet Winders. I'm the director of sales at Heller Consulting. I've spent about 20 years in nonprofit fundraising and technology. 8 years of that was as a frontline fundraiser and marketer at a nonprofit arts organization, and then 12 more years at agencies that support the work of nonprofits. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Tommy Spann.
Cool. My name is Tommy, and I am the Director of Sales at Mission CRM, working very closely with Christina to help organizations select and match with the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofits. And like Jet, I've been doing this for about 20-something years, working with software companies, working with agencies across different platforms and technologies, but solely focused on helping nonprofits. And so I think what you will find here today is you have a group of true industry gray hair experts who've really kind of been there, done that, and has seen the evolution of how technology has been working with nonprofits over many years. So if we don't answer your question, as Christina mentioned, please ask, because we want to make sure that you're getting all the information that you need to help you understand all the moves in the ecosystem.
So Tommy, speak for yourself on the gray hairs front.
I don't care what color it is, as long as I got hair, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Joking aside, just want to take 2 seconds to introduce who we are at Mission CRM, just to provide context for our audience today. So Mission CRM, we started this company back in 2016, and we have lived to our own mission since day one. And that is to accelerate the momentum of nonprofits operations so you can advance your mission and make a difference in the world. And the way that we do that at Mission CRM is by building a donor management and fundraising system on Microsoft, specifically Dynamics 365. And together with our amazing team of passionate humans, we help nonprofit organizations just like you make the journey from systems like Razor's Edge to Mission CRM and the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. And because this is all we do, we believe that we do understand how nonprofits work. And that's why we're here today in partnership with Heller Consulting, because we can't think of any better partner on the planet that knows nonprofits as deeply, as broadly as they do. And so the experience that we bring to the party today is really grounded in our expertise in donor management and fundraising on Dynamics 365, which is Microsoft's business application platform. And back in 2020, we were also grateful to be able to work with Microsoft in building a product called Fundraising and Engagement. And ever since we launched that product in October 2020, we have been developing our own IP, our own features and functionality on top of fundraising and engagement to really align with larger organizations with more sophisticated development operations. So, what does that actually look like? I like to think about it as like rings of a tree. So if we think about that center, that core, that's the Microsoft Cloud for nonprofit. That's Dynamics 365, Power Platform, and Azure. These may be things you have heard of, maybe not, but what you do need to take away is just that is Microsoft tech stack. And then around that is the fundraising and engagement solution I just mentioned, kind of out of the box, basic functionality for organizations with smaller development needs, less complex. And then that yellow ring around there, that's all the functionality that we've built, that we've innovated. And what that culminates into is that Mission CRM is a product. And we are a product on the Microsoft platform. So what that means, Jess will kind of explain a little bit more about that as we go through, but you get to absorb all the goodness of what Microsoft is doing and have a product like ours tailored to nonprofits, specifically donor management, fundraising, and financials. So that's kind of how it comes together. Cliff notes, I appreciate. But at the end of the day, it's products like Mission CRM that work in conjunction with organizations like yours to really unify your data in one place. And specifically, in this case, the Microsoft Cloud for nonprofit. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jet because typically we will work with teams like Heller Consulting all the time as they help their clients understand what their options are. And again, today we're going to explore what that looks like in the Microsoft Cloud for nonprofit. So over to you, Jet.
Well, thank you so much, Christina. Just a little background on Heller Consulting. I've been with Heller for about 4 years, but Heller has been working, supporting nonprofits with their technology for over 25 years. And so over that time, the technology that best serves nonprofits has changed dramatically. And so really what's core to what Heller does is understanding nonprofit business practices and helping them go out to the marketplace and identify solutions and architect ecosystems that are really going to solve those needs. And that's really what's brought Heller Consulting into partnership with Mission CRM in recognition that their powerful solution is solving so many challenges for clients that we work with. Heller gets to work with our clients in 3 different ways. And so 3 of the areas that we work with them on is first a strategic practice that is platform agnostic. In this practice, we help organizations walk through their requirements, really think through what they need, and then ultimately come out of that process with a selection or an ecosystem that's going to work best for them. You can move to the next slide now, but in that process, then we also support the implementation of many of those leading solutions. So we get to see how our recommendations play out in practical terms when folks are actually using systems and seeing how it's meeting their day-to-day challenges. And the last area that we work with is change management. That's really a recognition that we could turn on the best solution for an organization tomorrow. But if the folks that have to use that system don't understand why it's been put in place, how they're going to do their day-to-day work on it, if they don't have the appropriate training to use it successfully, it's not going to get the user adoption that you need it to be successful. And so we really want to make sure we appreciate the people aspect of any technology change. So, this conversation is really about moving on from Razor's Edge, but I wanted to start with why are so many organizations on Razor's Edge to begin with? And when I talk to clients, it's very funny because so often the answer of why are you on Razor's Edge is simply, it was here when I got here. Razor's Edge has been in the market for a very, very long time. It entered the marketplace in 1981. I personally have been a Razor's Edge user for 20 years when I first started at a nonprofit, and it still looks a lot like the same Razor's Edge that we've seen then. And so many development offices have really architected their own business processes and practices around what that tool can do. And so, we've really gotten used to it. The words that we use, how we describe things, so many places have just sort of defaulted to what's already been in place. And that hasn't always been a bad thing. Razor's Edge does have some core fundraising competencies that it does really well. And that's why it was adopted so widely and so broadly throughout the marketplace. Um, and so for folks that are doing fundraising in some traditional channels, perhaps direct mail, some moves management, Razor's Edge has out-of-the-box functionality that is really purpose-built for fundraising. And so, for those offices that perhaps are still fundraising the way they were 20 or 30 years ago, it might still be working very well for them. But for most organizations, that mix of fundraising that they have done over time has really changed. And so they start to look at, well, perhaps is it time to change Razor's Edge? And so another reason folks are still on it is change is hard sometimes. So, as they start to look down the road, it's like, oh, can we get one more add-on that helps us integrate between something else? Or, oh, can we rename some fields that maybe we shouldn't put data here, but we're going to put it there anyway? So maybe that gets you one more year on the system. And people do that for enough years, and finally they go, okay, it's really time to make a bigger change. So some of those pain points that we see that finally, get folks to decide it's time to make a bigger change um, are as follows. If you could move to the next slide for me. Um, these are some of the challenges that we hear that really, bring people to the place where it's time to make that change. The first is, you know, like I said before, I can still go in and use Razor's Edge, even though I'm no longer a daily user because it hasn't changed a whole lot. So the innovation on the product just really hasn't been there over the last several years, several decades. And so folks are really frustrated that their tool, is not really keeping up with new and modern ways that folks are fundraising, with new strategies that folks want to deploy. Another challenge that people have with Razor's Edge is it's difficult to collaborate with other departments using that system. Often there is new data sets that you want to bring in that are relevant to your donor segmentations or things like that. But because you can't really customize the solution and there's not a lot of flexibility on integration, it's really hard to bring that data in. And so that's just, makes it more challenging and more siloed in terms of a system, when you're trying to collaborate more broadly across your organization. I think lots of organizations have had the experience of their mix of fundraising just becoming a lot more sophisticated. Every campaign has multiple channels. You're using multiple tools to get out your messages, and the sophistication of Razor's Edge to really, consolidate all that data in one place and provide meaningful reporting is also really challenging for organizations to sort through. Part of that is the lack of integration. Even among Blackbaud's own products, sometimes people are on a whole suite of products from Blackbaud and they don't integrate that well with themselves, let alone with other solutions that they've gone out that are really helping them, with their marketing or helping drive a certain type of fundraising campaign. Part of the solution itself has created some challenging user interfaces with the move from Razor's Edge 7 to RENXT. There's, really is duplicative, sort of interfaces that you have to move back and forth between to be able to do, your day-to-day work. And that's just not a great user experience. And it's very frustrating for the actual users of the system. And then the last point I'll touch on is a data breach that Blackbaud had back in 2020. And that was a little while ago now. For the folks that were affected by this, it is still very fresh and painful in their minds because, as fundraisers, we just want to forget about that stuff and focus on engaging our donors and doing our work. We really want to be able to rely on the vendors that we work with to handle that type of security and make sure the technology is right. And so, this was a case where it really let a lot of organizations down and has caused a lot of, leadership at nonprofits to really ask folks to take another look at what they're using. And this is something that has spurred a lot of conversations. And, perhaps it's time to look at something else now. And, fortunately for organizations, when they go out to the market to look at alternatives, there are a lot of alternatives now. And so this is exciting for us here at Heller because, as we, talk with organizations about their pain points, we also really want to make sure we're talking about what those opportunities are. When you are changing technology, this is your chance to really deploy new fundraising strategies to work differently between departments. And so we really want to make sure we're having those big picture conversations, getting people really excited about what the potential of new technology is, and then look at the marketplace and say what is really going to be the best fit for your organization and allow you to accomplish those goals. One of the ways that we help organizations sort through that marketplace is by thinking about the difference between products and platforms in terms of solutions that help you with your fundraising and financial business processes. So I'll explain sort of how we think about the differences between the two. In a product, this is something like Blackbaud's Razor's Edge, where there really is a product vendor that has developed a single solution with a set of functionality that sort of does what it does out of the box. They're responsible for creating a roadmap of new functionality that may or may not fit with the changes and what you need from the organization over time. But if you can find one of these solutions that happens to do, what you need, that can be really good. It can get you a solution, very quickly. But, if your organization is changing over time, perhaps it doesn't have the flexibility that you need to change along with the tool, and then you'll be looking for another solution. Another challenge with that is also it's often not very flexible in terms of what it will integrate with in the marketplace. There may only be a few things that integrate well, or perhaps the only things that integrate are the other solutions that that vendor provides. And so sometimes you don't have the same flexibility in really, using those best-in-class tools like, we want to use this, leading fundraising platform or a leading marketing tool and be able to work together. Sometimes that can be really challenging. From a platform perspective, you can think of these like Salesforce or Microsoft, where the vendor is providing the underlying technology that is really powering the solution. And so that's great because Salesforce and Microsoft, they're serving not just nonprofits, they're serving, all many sectors of industry applications. And you're benefiting from the innovation in terms of user design, in terms of integration, in terms of, new emerging things like AI. You get all of that innovation in that underlying product. But then from that, you build up those customizations that make that unique nonprofit fundraising solution that works for your organization. And so that can be customizations within the tool itself. It can be third-party applications that are purpose-built to, do form intake or help with batch gift entry, different components of what you need. And what you end up with is an ecosystem that really is your full fundraising solution. Now, the challenge with that is it sometimes takes a little more administrative responsibility for the nonprofit to manage that solution, because not everything might be with the single provider. You're actually working with a network of solutions that are making up your fundraising solution. Now, I know we'll get into this more, but I think what's exciting about Mission CRM is, they've in some ways blended the best of both of these worlds, where they have a full, complete solution that can be a great alternative to Razor's Edge without losing any of the flexibility and interoperability that the platforms provide. So why are we excited also about Microsoft in terms of those platform options? And what Heller has seen over the last 5 years is Microsoft emerging as a leading platform choice for our nonprofit clients. 10 years ago, if you wanted to look beyond a point solution like Razor's Edge, Salesforce really would have been the only flexible platform that we could recommend to our clients. But over the last 5 years, what Microsoft has done is begin developing purpose-built solutions for nonprofits that have really unlocked their long-standing industry-leading technology for this new nonprofit use cases. And so they're leveraging these tools, which have been around for a long time, have been really proven in the marketplace, but they're now tailoring them to better fit nonprofit use cases. And when nonprofits are looking at this ecosystem of tools, they're finding really favorable licensing. Microsoft makes great discounts available to nonprofits. And as you scale with Microsoft, there are really some, strong financial benefits as you grow the different licensing that you work with them on. So in some cases, folks are finding it costs the same or even less to work with Microsoft solutions than their existing solutions when they ultimately make that move. And because Microsoft, is, while some of the Microsoft Cloud for nonprofit solutions are newer to the marketplace, Microsoft certainly is not. And so this ecosystem is expanding really, really rapidly. And it's really exciting to see so many of the nonprofit solutions that we're already used to working with begin to, make their own integrations directly with the system and really build out this ecosystem really rapidly. And then finally, I'll just say, with Microsoft's longstanding solutions as well, they've really got some industry-leading products that, make sure that they're secure, great storage solutions, great reporting solutions. We know these are already proven out, so you're not, stuck with, oh, what's a few reports that might work in some system. It's like these are really powerful tools that are now available to you as part of this ecosystem within Salesforce. So I'll show you what that looks like with this visual. Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit really started with a foundation of a common data model, and really why the nonprofit common data model is so important for folks in this ecosystem is that by establishing a common set of, this is how the system is going to recognize donors and recognize gifts and structure the data within the systems. It means that all of the solutions that Microsoft has built on top of that all work together, and the data is all going to work seamlessly together. And then beyond that, it's also told all the partners that are building on top of this ecosystem exactly how to build their solutions so that all that data is going to work together too. So these things have just a high level of native integration and interoperability, really powered by that common data model. And then you can see here what I described about sort of building on these industry solutions that were already available, but tailoring them to nonprofit use cases. For their fundraising and engagement solution, they're building on Azure and Dynamics 365. For their volunteer solution, they're leveraging their Power Apps and modern work solutions like Teams and SharePoint, powering reporting through Power BI. So these are really long-standing Microsoft proven solutions that are now being customized to meet specific nonprofit use cases. And so you just get that benefit of established technology now being leveraged for very distinct needs of our nonprofit clients. So I think with that as background, I think we're ready to dive in, Tommy, to learning a little bit more about Mission CRM.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just step back as I kind of explained a bit about why you might leave Razor's Edge, what the challenges might be there. So why is Mission CRM really an alternative to Razor's Edge?
Yeah, I think we have a slide here as a good visual. So this is a diagram that is meant to showcase what we hear described verbally almost every day. So I talk to a lot of organizations that are currently using the Razor's Edge, and you could swap, Razor's Edge for some of these other products, for other products in the market, but predominantly we hear this about the Razor's Edge. They start out with RE thinking like, okay, great, we have this awesome gift processing tool, and it is an awesome gift processing solution. And then they realize, hold on, we need this to integrate with our finance system. So they get maybe Financial Edge, or they get some other system that ties to that. And then they want to focus on their online marketing. So they need a website with online donations, event registrations, and then they need email marketing. And suddenly they find that Razor's Edge is really just a product based upon what you had shown us before, Jet. It is a product that has walls around it. And so you then have to get a solution like Omatic or something else to bridge those different products and data sets together. So now you as a nonprofit are becoming an integration specialist, somebody whose job involves managing this tool, this Omatic software, and understanding and managing how that data is moving in and out, and what are the issues and the collisions and the problems and the duplications. And you're less focused on fundraising, you're less focused on donor relations and stewardship, and you end up having to spend a lot of time and energy on data management. So that is a common problem that we hear all the time. And there are some solutions to those issues, but it's not fulsome because there is not a true platform that aligns with the Razor's Edge to support more programmatic change, right? Now, on the right side of this, you have the Dynamics platform. So the light green box around it, think of that as the Dynamics 365 Power Platform, where you have a series of applications. And those applications have distinct jobs, but they all use the same core data set. They all use the same underlying technology. And so it allows for infinite expansion of an organization. And I'm going to take the screen and I'm actually going to show you this for a second because I think it really helps to really see it. So looking at my screen here, you'll see that I'm currently logged into Mission CRM and I've got this Power BI dashboard, right? So this Power BI dashboard is pulling from my Mission CRM database, but it could also be pulling from other data sets or other data that is being stored in this platform. If I click on the application link up at the top, you'll see, much like an iPhone or an Android phone, I have different applications in here. So the reason that Mission CRM is different than the Razor's Edge is because it is an application in a platform. So while I might have a core set of my team working in Mission CRM, I'm going to have other folks working in the marketing application. I'm going to have some folks working in donor search. We've got volunteer management. We have so much that we can do. And all of these use that same database. So if I want to send an email that is based upon gift related data and or volunteer data, I can do that. And I can also blend these together. So unlike an iPhone where you move from one app to the other, this is rather opaque in your general experience. So for example, if I go and I take a look at a specific contact, I'm looking at my record in the database here, you'll see that I can access my volunteer engagement that is being managed in that volunteer management application. This is not Mission product. This is what Microsoft has provided, but again, it is the value of that platform. I've also got this Insight tab that shows the Dynamics marketing activity. Which emails have I opened? What forms have I utilized? What is that typical open rate and whatnot from this individual from a marketing perspective? I have all of that in one place. And if I need to create any sort of query, I can really build that off of that holistic data set, not just the information that is stored in that product. And of course, Mission meets the gift processing criteria that is important for an organization that is looking to leave the Razor's Edge. We have a whole area in the product around gift management. So everything from the individual transactions that are coming in to those pledges that are important for you to keep track of and manage over multiple years with multiple different giving parties, from family foundations to individuals, donor advised funds, all of that is going to be a part of this. And for payment schedules, which is a recurring gift, so that you can have somebody who has offered to make a donation on a recurring basis. Maybe it's annually, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's every other month. And you have that integrated with the payment service that is automatically charging those credit cards or the bank accounts and depositing those funds into your bank, and then updating the payment schedule to occur upon the next frequency setting. So those are just a few quick examples. There's gift batch entry in Mission CRM that allows your nonprofit to be able to set up a series of default values here and then go forward and begin to batch enter those gifts inheriting those default values, but you can override the default, right? You can say, well, for this one, I'm not going to use that specific campaign. I'm going to use a different one. Or maybe for this one, instead of it being a cash gift or a check, I'm going to actually process the credit card directly inside of the batch, right? I can do all of that in one place. So Mission CRM, to summarize, is an alternative to the Razor's Edge because it is a part of this platform, because you can fuse all of this data together for an individual contact in one place, and yet have that required feature set of gift processing, development, donor management, stewardship, all of that that is really important to every nonprofit.
Yeah,
Right, Jet,
I
jump
think
back.
I think being able to see that in action really demonstrates that power of that nonprofit common data model, whereas you're doing different activities, it's pulling from there. And then, the interoperability, like I know that reporting is great because that's powered by Power BI, and we know the depth and flexibility that a tool like that has, not only, in part because of what you've done with it, but also because of what the solution has been proven out by so many others. Um, Sometimes with product solutions, there can be some gotchas in terms of like numbers of records and numbers of users, where then the system has performance challenges. Maybe you can talk us through just about the scalability of the solution and, can it meet small organizations? Can it be appropriate for large organizations? Where's the right fit in your mind?
Yeah, well, that is, again, the benefit of the platform is that it really can appease organizations of all sizes. So here's an illustration that speaks a bit to the platform that this sits upon. So if you look at the top and you kind of go down, you have Mission CRM and other applications like Donor Search is just an example of another application that is a part of this Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit initiative. And that initiative includes all of the applications that Microsoft likes to promote. And those first party products that you mentioned, they've begun to build, the fundraising engagement, which we helped to develop, the volunteer management solution, some of the journeys they're building for the Microsoft marketing product as well. But at the core of that, and what makes this fairly unique, is Azure. So Azure is this infinitely scalable platform that other platforms don't have a complement to, right? And so Azure allows for so much functionality, so much processing that simply is improper to be done in a CRM. If you talk to the real techies, you start talking about columnar databases and relational databases, you talk about SQL as a service, you talk about, versus SQL as a database, and you start to understand the value of Azure and what it can do in terms of managing that scale for organizations that have high volumes of data. In fact, we're talking to an organization right now that has over 100 million records that it needs to be able to query on a regular basis. It needs to be able to segment. It needs to be able to evaluate when a new gift comes in via batch gift entry to ensure that a record in that file is going to be captured as a part of its gift entry without storing all of that in the CRM. And so the platform gives us that level of flexibility and scalability. It's a bit hard to demonstrate, but I thought I would show you a couple examples how Mission is taking advantage of that. So a moment ago, I was showing you the batch gift entry. That actual solution, while it is accessible and viewable inside of the Mission application, you might notice the interface looked a little bit different, right? But that's because this is a web application hosted in Azure. And so what we're doing by hosting this in Azure is we can take lots of data, hold those records in this holding table, and then compare them using a solution we built called Find or Create against the existing database before entering them in, right? So what you're looking at here is a web application hosted in Azure, embedded inside of the CRM, leveraging the power of Azure. That's just one example. Another example where if you take a look at the output of gift entry, what makes Mission CRM so amazing is the fundraising to finance value of being able to say, we understand fundraising. We're providing you the tools for fundraising and gift processing, but we also understand finance. And we understand how critical it is for your finance team to have those journal entries that capture the fund accounting components, the debits and the credits and these account codes and those account codes and everything that is so important to manage from a finance perspective. And so what you're seeing here, again, is another component hosted in Azure where the data is actually in Azure. It doesn't even live in the CRM. These are what we call designation distributions. Every single gift, whether it's for $1 or $1 million, if it has one designation associated with it, then it's going to have two records, a debit and a credit record. If it is split between multiple designations, then it's going to have multiple designation distribution records. So you can appreciate a large organization that is processing thousands of gifts on a monthly basis, where some of those gifts are being split 2 or 3, 4 times between different designations, what Razor's Edge calls funds. That creates a lot of data. And so if you put that into the CRM, you start to kind of like clog up the gears. So hosting that in Azure and then providing tools that allow us to query Azure in an expedient way and then export that through a batching process that can be pushed into Business Central or Financial Edge or anything else that the finance team prefers to use, allows us to leverage the strength of this underlying platform without causing any disruption to the daily workers. So those are just a couple of examples. We could talk about this for hours, but we heavily leverage the Azure platform to provide that scalability that nonprofits need.
I love that. As a Razor's Edge user, I definitely remember having to run certain reports at the end of the day because once you click go on it, I couldn't do much else in the system. And so, having that flexibility can be a big difference for day-to-day users that actually need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
I think what you just shared is an example of, why there's such a great synergy between Mission CRM and the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit, but maybe you can share just a little bit more about what you see as the value of being built on top of that.
Yeah, so it's one thing to build a product that is hosted by this platform. It's another thing to be a part of this Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit initiative. So what you're looking at here is a Microsoft slide, where it talks about the different components of this initiative. They have these 3 legs to the stool: the attract, retain, and grow donors, that deliver programs in time and scale, reach and engage audiences, and each of those aligns with a different set of products. And so from the donation management, that's the fundraising and engagement application that we co-built, from which Mission CRM is built upon. Volunteer management, which we're going to take a look at in a second. But they've also got the marketing application that is leveraging the Dynamics marketing solution, which is fantastic. So again, I'll jump over into demo mode and just kind of show you how we weave this together and some of the capabilities that nonprofits can take advantage of. So let's see, here it goes. So back on my screen here, so we already took a look at just one example of how Power BI, which is a part of this Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofits initiative, is included in Mission CRM. And you can notice that I can open this in Power BI. We just happen to have embedded it inside of the application. But Power BI is just a fantastic visual tool and analytics tool for organizations, and there really is no limit to what you can do with it. You can really leverage Power BI for any types of analytics beyond what is just in the database. Another example for the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofits is the volunteer management solution. So volunteer management, if I click up here again, you'll see we have the mission application, we have the volunteer management application. But if I go into the volunteer management application, I can see a series of engagements that allows me to keep track of who and what and where are we going to get together for this volunteer activity. It might be a virtual meeting, it might be a physical meeting, and I can pick on any one of these activities and organize it in terms of how many people do I need? What is the description, the location? What are the requirements I need? What's the schedule that I'm going to be constructing in order to fulfill this particular volunteer engagement? And then I can post that on a portal, which is that has a public component and a authenticated component. And this public component you can see here in the portal allows me to advertise the different volunteer engagements that are available and allow individuals coming to this portal to filter it and find the people, find the opportunities that align with them. And then they can view those details and they can actually register and sign up, right? And they can apply to be a volunteer. There's a rich feature set around this volunteer management application that is just a part of the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofits. And this is a free application, right? This is a free application, a free portal solution. You really can't get better than that because it is a very comprehensive solution as well. So if I come back to one of my contact records here, you can see that I'm able to access his volunteer engagement activity from within Mission CRM. Because again, we can fuse these things together. I can see that he has participated in this Art Talk opportunity, this engagement. I can see what his preferences are. I can see what his qualifications are, and I can drill down and see all the information that is available to me because again, it's one database that allows me to understand the holistic value of this individual within my organization beyond just their donation information. Another example is with Donor Search, right? Donor Search is a wealth profiling application where I can pull information from the from the Donor Search solutions into Mission CRM, and then I have all of that accessible to me to query, to report on, and most importantly, to action on. If I take a look at a record here that has real data, Kevin Plank is the CEO of Under Armour. And so if I take a look at Kevin's record, all of this data is now living in my CRM, accessible in my CRM for all those different query criteria solutions that I want. I can see what Donor Search has determined as the rankings. I can see his charitable giving, even individual records that they have captured in the database, right? So again, just two examples there. Another one is the integration that Dynamics and the Power Platform has with the other modern work applications. So I can easily access any of my applications up here, Microsoft, but there's an integration, and this really starts to leverage some of the AI work that you see Microsoft promoting. So I've got an email here from one of our donors, Brianna Henderson. She just sent us a note saying that her daughter attended the gardens and she wants to help improve the education program. And so I can leverage the AI because I've got her in the database, and I can say, all right, write an informal invitation to visit the museum and discuss further investment. Okay, let's see how the AI is going to do with that, right? So as Microsoft continues to innovate and develop around its AI initiatives, nonprofits get the benefit of that. So here you can see that it has developed a response, and it calls it Copilot for a reason, because it's not autopilot. It is saying, hey, we're going to give you a suggestion for an email, and now I can modify it. Be happy to program to discuss the potential. I don't believe in investing in provider and visitors. If you'd like to visit the museum, be delighted to discuss the program with you. Perhaps next Tuesday could work, right? So I can modify this and I can send it, and it's going to track it in the database on her record immediately. And so that's another example of how we're leveraging this Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. The last one I'll show briefly is now I'm in the marketing application. Again, inside the same tenant, inside the same CRM, but I'm now using the marketing application. And what you'll see here is that I have a series of journeys. And so these journeys really allow me to construct a conversation that I want to have with my constituents. So I can determine, how does the journey start? What is that thing that triggers the journey? Well, once they've given, So if they've given in the last day, then I want to add anybody to this journey and I want to start communicating to them. I could exclude certain segments from my database. So maybe anybody who has an existing opportunity that we're discussing for a major gift, or anybody that we have identified as a major donor, or staff members, whatever that might be, I can exclude them. And then I can send an email. I can send other types of messages. I can send SMS and text messages if I have that set up. I can put in weights. I can send other emails. I can even go so far as having like if then branching. So if they click on it, then I want to do these things. If they don't, then I want to wait. I want to send them another email, and I can go on and on and on. And I can have subsequent triggers in here, all based upon the data. Oh, maybe they did volunteer. Well, I know that because it's a part of the CRM. Or maybe they gave. I know that because it's a part of the CRM as well. So I have all of this information available to really help me build this relationship and build the conversation with all of my constituents.
Yeah, I think that demonstration just really brings it together. You know, you've hopped from our email to our marketing tool to our reporting tool, so many things that, you know, in my old Razor's Edge brain, I'm logging into a different application every time and, you know, switching between my browser tabs and all sorts of things. And it's all right there. It's all, you know, operating together right in the single application to do such a broad set of the work that you need to get done. So imagine that we've convinced some folks that they would actually want to be on Mission CRM. What might that journey for them look like to make that change? And, you know, who are some other folks that have been successful in making that change and are finding success with the solution?
Yeah, well, I think it's helpful to kind of understand who are some of the existing mission customers, because if you believe they've done their due diligence, you believe that they are an organization that aligns somewhat with, you know, your experience, your mission, then you'll feel more comfortable. So these are just some of the many different organizations that we're proud to call customers of Mission CRM. You know, that ranges everything from Team Rubicon, which is a well-known US-based disaster response nonprofit that's helping people with all the different hurricane recovery and various different catastrophic events in the world right now, to World Wildlife Fund Canada, the great work that they do in conservation. St. John Ambulance, both in Canada and in the UK, a very large organization that has very complex needs that we're proud to have worked with in helping them to launch not just mission, but also the volunteer applications, portal applications. So we've done a lot of work with them. And United Way King County up in the Seattle area, their complex gift processing requirements for any United Way affiliate is always a challenge. And we've been able to help them be successful. USS Midway, the amazing, you know, ship down in San Diego, the aircraft carrier that I had a chance to tour, and how they're using Mission to manage their memberships and integrating with their ticketing systems and using it for volunteer management. And like, there's so many wonderful stories that we could tell about each of these organizations and how they're using it. But the typical process that we follow when helping a nonprofit implement Mission is, once the contracts are signed, we go through this 7-phase journey. And we typically see this as a 4-month journey, but at times it needs to flux based upon what the organization's needs are. And so there's some variables that we will account for in the project. But it really aligns. We found that this methodology, no matter if you're a small organization or a very large organization, really helps to provide the accountability and set the expectations for what the process is going to be. So that welcome phase, each one of these it's a waterfall event. So we have an exit factor in each of these stages. From the welcome phase, it's getting that agreement together for how we're going to work in partnership. We call it the project partnership agreement. You might think of it as a charter, but working together to ensure that we not only have the teams ready, but we have the processes ready for how decisions are going to be made, how we're going to operate on a daily, weekly, monthly basis throughout the project. The educate phase is where you're going to teach us about your business processes and your needs, and we're going to teach you about how the technology can align to that, and vice versa, right? So it's a mutual education phase to ensure that we're gathering those requirements that are going to lead into the configuration work. So the configuration is the hands on the keyboards, developing what we call the configuration solution that is unique to each customer, and that sits on top in the hierarchy of the technology solutions. So if you want a field to have this description or this label, or you want this form to have this structure, we can do all of that. There's so much that can be done without writing code that can allow for a configuration or a tailoring of the solution to meet your needs without involving anything that's complex, so that your organization really can make it your own. That's why we call it the make it your mission implementation. In the data phase, I'll just jump ahead to this slide. We go through a methodical process to make sure that we understand your data before we start developing or utilizing any scripts. If you're coming from the Razor's Edge, we've already done this so many times. We have pre-built scripts and processes and questions ready to help you migrate that Razor's Edge data as if it originated in Mission CRM. And that's a critical objective. We don't want to just dump the data. We don't want you to feel like, oh, well, when we run our analytics prior to 2023, we have to look at it from a different perspective. No, we want you to feel like the data that originated maybe back in 1989 or 1997 and the Razor's Edge lives in Mission as if it were created there. So we go through a methodical process to ensure that all of those attributes, all of those solicit codes, all of those phone codes, whatever that is in the Razor's Edge has a home, and that it is going to serve your strategic needs. So that's our data phase. And then we get into training, where we tailor the training to help your team launch successfully, because we're not going anywhere. We're going to support you long after you have launched. But we want to make sure that on the day of launch, the week of launch, the month of launch, your team has everything it needs to be successful. So that's the focus of our training. And launch is crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. If you have recurring donors, sustaining donors, it's a critical component to make sure that we take on that subscription, that critical responsibility of charging those donors on that monthly basis or whatever the frequency is. So that's a big part of the work. And then we move into what we call the success phase, which is a gentle handoff from our implementation team to our client happiness team, where we're conducting regular office hours and ensuring that your team has what they need, their questions answered, so that you've got a partner, not just through the implementation, but for the entire time that you will be a customer of Mission CRM. So that's what it looks like. And this is who we've done it for, and many, many others. And so I think my next slide here is to make sure that we are addressing everybody's questions. So Christina, did we have any questions pop up in the chat?
Yeah, well, we actually had a couple sent through a little bit earlier, Tommy, and I also wanted to give a couple of questions out there that I had based on what you and Jet have been talking about so far. So let me just kind of mash them up. We'll go through three, and then of course, if there's ever any, we'll share our contact information at the end as well. So the first one is really for Jet. I think, the breadth and depth of what the platform offers almost perhaps has like a dizzying effect on nonprofits who are thinking about making this move. So from like Heller Consulting's perspective, where should organizations start the journey? Like, how do they even like dig in? What's step one on this journey when they're thinking about making a move like this?
Well, one thing I always encourage folks to think through is what they want to accomplish with the change. It's really easy to get folks to rattle off a few pain points and things like that. But a technology change is really an opportunity to do something and accomplish something and achieve a goal. And having those really clear in your mind can be the framework for all the conversations that you want to have. So then when you speak to folks, see demonstrations, you can really look at those things through the lens of, is this going to help us achieve these things or not? I think you commented on kind of the potential complexity that, oh, does this actually get too overwhelming? You know, and that can be for folks that have been using Razor's Edge for a long time, and the system just kind of does what it does. And now we're offering this new world where there's lots of potential opportunities. So again, that's where having these clear, this is what I want to be able to do, that would give folks like yourself the opportunity to say, yes, you have access to all this technology, but here's the 3 things you need to use to be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, and actually see how it's going to do those.
Yeah, we like to think of that as kind of like the North Star. Jet, that's kind of how we refer to it, and we try and stay focused on that. I guess one of the things I'm also curious about is, we've been on this journey alongside Heller and other organizations, really with Microsoft from the get-go when they launched Tech for Social Impact and this whole initiative. And I would be curious to find out from your perspective, what's the trend line that you're seeing? What has changed over the past few years? Are more organizations looking at Microsoft now than ever before? What are you seeing in terms of, I guess, trends or insights that you can share with, our viewers about that?
Yeah, more folks are, what I said in the presentation, when there's more options in the market, nonprofits win. And we really believe that. And this has really given folks the opportunity to, have choice in the marketplace and find something that is really going to fit their needs best. And from the clients that we led through those selection processes, it's really exciting to see folks that almost certainly 3 years ago would have chose Salesforce as their platform to build on and do their fundraising activities, really choose Microsoft as that underlying platform, and others then choosing Mission to build out that product suite that really replaces Razor's Edge for them. And so we're definitely seeing a trend towards interest in the Microsoft platform from a technology standpoint. And, that goes beyond fundraising, because this is in, so much of the tools we're already using. Folks have a footprint in Microsoft already. You can do so much more with it than just fundraising. So we're seeing it from a trend of interest in the technology more broadly, and then more specifically in as an alternative to Razor's Edge and other fundraising point solutions, because with that foundation, you really can replace what you've got and have a whole lot more options doing it.
That's awesome answer. Thank you, Jet. And one last question for Tommy. So Tommy, in terms of, Mission CRM as a product, obviously there's what comes out of the box. Can you give me, a quick kind of digest on how we think about configuration of Mission CRM, that tailoring process that you talked about, making it your own? How do we accomplish that in Mission CRM? Because we don't want organizations to have legacy technical debt, right? How do we make that happen so that it's a product that we configure versus a solution that we customize?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak about this and demonstrate this, well, because you're right. Like every organization is going to have their own unique requirements around how they want to utilize the technology so that it aligns with their business process. And I'll just give you a couple of quick demonstration examples. So in what we call the development area of Mission, which is typically what you're going to be using for major gift opportunities and grant solicitations, right? Here you'll see if I click on any one of these records, up at the top, I've got what is called a business process flow, right? So you might think of this as like a moves management series of stages. And so what we've done is we've captured what we believe are the industry best practices for those stages. And within each one of these, what is required in order for this organization or this fundraiser to move to that next stage. And so we've developed this out of the box, but every organization is going to have their own recipe. And so this is where it's really easy. I say this easy because I don't have write any code, but I can drag and drop and change the stages and change the fields that are in there. I can even create like workflows and automation that if it moves from this stage to the next stage, then I want to notify and tap Jet on the shoulder and let him know that this opportunity is moving to the subsequent stage, or maybe change some other values. And of course, changing the different fields that you're capturing, whether it be on a donor record or an opportunity record like this, being able to make sure that it is storing the information that is going to be important for that organization and their use of the data. That's very straightforward as examples of configuration. And from a technical perspective, what we do is we follow good governance practices by capturing all of those tailored configurations in a dev environment, because every nonprofit gets both a dev environment and a production environment, right? So that they can build things in the dev environment and test it all out before they move it into production. They can even create a UAT environment that they can perform additional testing. In that dev environment is where we're going to store and package all of those configurations in what we call a configuration solution, and then deploy it into production, right? So that allows for them to have this essentially code of their own that can be deployed over and over again as things change, and it will override those things in the core product that we might be developing. So it really is a good marriage of convenience and configuration with dependability of the product.
Thank you very much, Tommy. That was a great explanation. I appreciate that. So I think that's all the questions that we have for this afternoon. I want to say a big thank you for coming along for the ride, learning more. I hope you have, because there's so much to dig into. You should have more questions. You will have more questions. So that said, please feel free to reach out to myself. My email is there, or Tommy as well. Jet and the Heller Consulting team are always there to pick up the phone, answer the email, help you figure things out from the get-go. And in partnership with them, like Jet and Tommy have alluded to, we have worked with many nonprofits on this journey and would love to help you figure out yours as well. So thanks again for attending. Hope you have a great day, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Everyone wave.
Much.
Bye for now.
Bye.